This form of medicine just has such a wide range of benefits. I could do it in a joint injection to heal cartilage and get rid of pain. Autoimmune diseases, they work great. Neurodegenerative conditions, neuropathies, stuff like autism. So there's just this wide approach that that this medicine can offer to people. It's just, you just got to kind of really narrow it down how to do it and how to do it right, and also to incorporate other modalities of healing.
You're listening to A New Way of Living with Dan Voss, inspiring you to a new life of breathwork, cold therapy, nature, and plant medicine. In this week's episode, my guest is Dr. Travis Whitney. Dr. Whitney is a board-certified doctor licensed in the states of Arizona and California. He's a specialist in stem cell therapy and functional medicine and is a member of the International Society for Cell and Gene Therapy and the Institute for Functional Medicine. He graduated from the National University of Natural Medicine in Portland, Oregon, with a doctorate in naturopathic medicine and a master's of science in integrative medicine research, as well as a master's of acupuncture from the Phoenix Institute of Herbal Medicine in Acupuncture. Dr. Whitney is the founder of Innate Healthcare Institute. Innate is one of the premier clinics in regenerative and personalized medicine in the U.S., with patients flying from all over the country to receive care. When not practicing at Innate, Dr. Whitney consults, trains, and performs treatments for other clinics across the U.S. Dr. Travis, welcome to A New Way of Living podcast.
Thank you so much, Dan. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're going to be talking about regenerative medicine and more specifically stem cell therapy, which is a big part of your work, as well as many other wellness practices that you practice yourself and also recommend for your patients and clients. So I'd love to start with hearing a little bit more about your story of how you got started with medicine and why you got started with medicine. So if you can share a little bit more about yourself and how it all got started.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Florida, Northwest Florida, Destin area to be specific. If anybody is there as vacation there, because that's what we're known for, is our beautiful beaches. So yeah, I had a knack for health pretty early on, super into martial arts. That led me into energetic stuff like Qigong and Tai Chi. Really into fitness. I played all kinds of sports growing up. Amateur boxer for a little bit. So I was always active. Got into weightlifting because I was about 120 pounds dripping wet out of high school. And so I wanted to be big and buff and strong. And so got deep into fitness as well. And I was spent a lot of my years in Florida as a rescue guard on the beaches. So I got to save a lot of lives, and that I found it to be very rewarding in doing rescues. And so I wanted to get out of town. I wanted to get out, and I wanted to help the world as much as I could. And I joined the Army. Spent a little time as an infantry officer, and realized pretty quickly that wasn't the niche I wanted in life either. So after my time in the Army, I moved out west, started studying some Kung Fu and Qigong, and was either going a couple routes. I was going to go into the FBI. I was in an application process with the FBI, and I applied for med school. And I applied for some neuroscience programs. I was going to do a PhD in neuroscience. And just the healing, something spoke to me about med school. It just really captured me about being a healer. And that was the route I went. Flash forward long and grueling years, and ended up here in Phoenix, Arizona, where I founded Innate Healthcare Institute and have been practicing medicine ever since then.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing that story and stories from other people that may have gone into something like an FBI agent almost, and then all of a sudden they become a doctor. I always find that that's so fascinating. to hear people's stories of, they kind of had a fork in the road and they could have gone left or right. And, And here we are. It's a really cool story.
Yeah.
So a big part of your work is around stem cell therapy. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what are stem cells and exosomes and stem cell therapy as a whole? Can you kind of share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'll go back just a little bit. I'll spend about a minute backtracking just a little bit. So one of the first one of the specializations I focused on really early in med school was joint injections. I started shadowing a doctor that was doing a lot of weight loss, hormones, diabetes and stuff in his clinic, which I was fascinated with at the time, especially. And but a lot of the day he was doing these injections with people with car accidents and pain and severe chronic pain. So what are you doing? Like, I thought you only did like treat people with diabetes. And he said, oh no, I do prolotherapy. And I was like, wow, okay. And I got to hear these people's stories of having chronic pain and seeing no relief until after they got that. So I started really focusing on my second year in injection techniques and specialized in that. And at the time, there was a few methods: dextrose prolotherapy, PRP, stands for platelet-rich plasma, and stem cell therapy. And back then, this mentor at the time was like, yeah, stem cells are coming along. They're very expensive. Not a lot of people are going to want to do them. The science is still catching up, all that good stuff. So I was like, oh, all right, well, I won't pay any attention to that. So flash forward, I've graduated, I'm practicing. I've been injecting people for years with PRP and dextrose and stuff. And I have a company come up to me and approach me and say, hey, we need a specialist like you to do stem cell medicine. And I said, well, I'm busy. They lured me in and got me to open my eyes to the world of what this biological medicine is more probably an accurate name for it can do. So now I'll jump back into your question. So I have this background of this pathway kind of leading me into this life and this choice of a career. And so I went and I did that. And then I started really fine tuning what stem cell medicine means. So when you say like, what is a stem cell, that just opens up this huge can. There's every tissue in our body has stem cells. So what we do is we really want to fine tune and make a very precise approach of when we say we're doing a stem cell treatment or an exosome treatment. What kind of stem cells? Are we trying to get stem cells from an umbilical cord? Or are we trying to get them from a placenta, someone's bone marrow, someone's adipose tissue? So there's all kinds of different avenues that we can take to do a stem cell treatment. So I was working with these companies that were ordering from these commercial labs, and the big argument back then was like, well, these don't have any stem cells in them. Some people were privy or were smart enough to take like samples of those and send them off to labs, and then the lab would do an analysis and say, oh well, yeah, though we don't see any live stem cells in them. But the funny thing is they were working. So what the heck was going on? It's called stem cell medicine, but people weren't finding stem cells in there. But man, I would tell you, if I injected into somebody's knee that had osteoarthritis for 10 years, a week or two later, their pain is almost gone. And wow. It was staying gone. So I started looking at clinics across like America and overseas and stuff like that, and really kind of started fine tuning it like I was talking about. So we ditched ditched ordering from these commercial labs, which was really causing a lot of the headache for patients because people were paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for a single treatment, and I found in my experience that not to be very efficacious too. It's a constant application of the cells that has almost like a compounding effect. To make like a financial analogy, but so what we did is most of the research I read in my experience was with cord tissue. So that's where a scientist or a doctor or someone would take an umbilical cord. They, for lack of better explanation, pretty much like put it in a Vita blender. Like they
Wow.
use special equipment to dissect it really, really small, and they use enzymes and stuff to kind of get away the different tissue, and they can isolate a certain cell type known as a mesenchymal stem cell, which should be more accurately named a medicinal signaling cell. So we just call them MSCs from umbilical cord. And those I found to be more efficacious than bone marrow and adipose. For other reasons, if you really want to dig into it, we can dig into them. But that's what I used and became more experienced with and found better success with over the years. And so what we're doing is we're taking a cord, what you can do is take a cord, get a certain cell type from it, and then you're using that cell for a therapeutic purpose. And these cells, this form of medicine just has such a wide range of benefits. I could do it in a joint injection to heal cartilage and get rid of pain. Autoimmune diseases, they work great. Neurodegenerative conditions, neuropathies, stuff like autism. So there's just this wide approach that that this medicine can offer to people.
Wow.
And it's just, you just got to kind of really narrow it down how to do it and how to do it right, and also to incorporate other modalities of healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. When you said autoimmune disease, my first thought was that's a huge field, right? Like there's lots of different autoimmune diseases. So how do you go about determining, which autoimmune disease it's going to help treat, and what's the process like to go about finding that, kind of pinpointing the autoimmune disease and then going and actually treating it? What is the process like there?
Well, we kind of have a saying with us that use umbilical cord stem cells for treatments, or that have in the past, is they don't really care. They don't care if it's MS, and they don't really care if it's Crohn's. They have a way of modulating the immune system so that it's turning off that capability of it attacking its own tissue. And I've seen that firsthand. I've seen it with Crohn's disease. I've had people not have flares in years now after only a few treatments. So it doesn't really care if it's rheumatoid arthritis, if it's MS, if it's Crohn's. Now from there we can still administer the same stem cells. Whether it's intravenously is the most popular administration for autoimmune conditions, or you can also do intramuscularly because it's kind of acting like a vaccine at that point. It's a longer dwell time. The cells are going to stay in the body a lot longer, and the immune system in those cells are going to start talking, and that's where the magic is happening. So if it's MS versus Crohn's or something, then you can kind of start tailoring other treatments specifically for that patient or for that condition.
Wow. And then how about for joints? You mentioned that it can help with like cartilage repair. What's happening there on a scientific level when you are treating joint pain or any kind of joint dysfunction? What's the process for that? What's happening on a scientific level?
Yeah, so stem cells, it's hard to measure what they're doing once you put them inside the body, but they have this amazing differentiation capacity where one of the lineages of tissue types that we know that they can convert to is chondrocytes, cells that make up cartilage and connective tissue. So there's that as a very plausible theory, but another one is what's called their Paracrine Effect. And that's what we say when, like, our hormones are an example of a paracrine communication. It's cells secreting proteins, growth factors, hormones, exosomes, after reading the environment and deciding what kind of medicine they need to make. The way I see it is these MSCs are little natural pharmacies. They're reading the environment, they're picking up on cues on what medicine they need to make, and they distribute it in the form of exosomes, like you alluded to earlier. They're little micro packages that at one time when they were first discovered, they thought it was just like cell waste, like cell poop. It was just cells getting rid of stuff, until they were able to isolate them and actually look what was in them. And they make a huge host of growth factors. If I was in my other room, I have them all written up on a big chalkboard in there. But they make so many different growth factors and proteins and miRNA and messenger RNA and mitochondrial transfer is one of the big techniques they think is why stem cells help so much, especially in the longevity world. So really what they're doing is you put them in a knee, and I guess the most scientific best answer I can give you is they're creating new chondrocytes, and they're telling those cells around them to heal, get better, divide, be your best self, be your best cell.
Yeah, right. So I got to go back to the mitochondrial piece. You're saying that stem cell therapy could help with mitochondrial function and mitochondrial health. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. I'd say that's a good way to summarize it. It could. That could be one of the pathways where it's helping so significantly. Yeah.
And what's can you break that down a little further? Like why and how are the stem cells assisting in that mitochondrial function? I don't think we know. I've read those really recently. Some newer reports on mitochondrial transfer. You got to remember, a lot of science and a lot of medicine is a lot of theorizing. We like to make it sound like A does B does C and it equals D. I'll never forget the day in one of the pharmacology classes when our professor, who was an MD, he practiced for like 20 years, and he taught our pharmacology course. He said, he goes, "We don't even know how Tylenol works." And I was like, "What do you mean you don't know how Tylenol works? Like, that's one of the most popular pain medications in the whole world." But they really don't know the mechanism of action for Tylenol anymore. Wow.
There's some theories that might be acting on another enzyme system, similar to the COX-2, like an aspirin or something does, or there's some part of the brain that it's specifically focusing on. But so with stem cells, there's a lot of the overt actions, but on the micro level, like, there's still a lot of stuff coming up where we're like, well, it's probably because they're secreting so many growth factors and proteins, and now we see mRNA, which is going into the neighboring cells. Let's just stick with the knee, the neighboring cells, and it's packaging that genetic information, and it's going into another cell, and it's saying, here's the info you need, here's the software you need to start creating new, younger, better proteins. Yeah.
Got it.
So I'm super curious about the mitochondrial stuff myself. I try to split my time between hands-on healing, helping the patients, and then how long in bed do I want to sit and read a research paper?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. The field in general, though, can you tell us a little bit more about where we're at in terms of how far we've come with stem cell therapy, with research and understanding, where we stand today, how much room for growth there is in terms of that research and understanding, where are we at with the state of the field?
Oh my gosh, yes. Such a good question, because it's a huge myth. And I talk to people pretty much every day, or Monday through Friday. I'm really getting better about leaving my weekends open, but I talk to people wanting to reach out and communicate with me about this form of medicine. And one of the most common questions I get is, well, there's no research on it. You know, that's what people will say. They'll call and they're like, well, I want to come get treatments. I've seen all your testimonials, or I've heard from so and so how amazing it is, but there's no research on it. And I just don't think a lot of people know how to research very well, and what to look for. But there's been there's decades of research of safety first, of course. That's what you start with. Is it safe? That to me is. I thought I had my textbook. Oh, I do. Here, let me grab this real quick. Mm-hmm. So there's even entire textbooks out there just dedicated to studies, hundreds and thousands of studies on safety for a variety of conditions. So we really need to move past the safety part, and we are. They're starting to look at more trials and stuff like that onto efficacy for certain conditions. But then you got to get into the debate of, well, do you want something like this to sit in the research world for 10 more years when there's so many people out there suffering like right now, and we know how to use it safely and we know how to administer it? There's no way we can fast forward this. So there's lots of research. There's tons of research going on. Clinicaltrials.gov, just type in like stem cell, mesenchymal stem cell, umbilical cord stem cell, stuff like that. You'll get plenty of hits on trials currently going on. But yeah, there's been lots of stuff out there. If you know how to do a little PubMed research, you can find something.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned the idea of treatment for autism. How is stem cell therapy used, and how are you and your team? How are you using stem cell therapy for treating autism?
We've treated autism using a combination of an intramuscular approach and it's called an intranasal approach. And we do testing. We want to make sure that the kid is overall healthy as we can. We focus on autoimmune health. We focus on gut health, brain health, detoxification pathways, as best you can in a kid, because you can't just tell a kid to take this, Right. Kids with autism even are a little more picky than other kids, and so it can be pretty hard how to administer. But as far as our stem cells, an IM approach is good. Like I said, it increases the time that the cells are in the body. So we do an intramuscular, so it's really a short, quick little injection, usually in the shoulder. If they're really too small and I don't want to put a full cc in a shoulder, I'll do it in the thigh. And an intranasal is one I adapted from what's called a sphenopalatine ganglion block, an SPG for short. So that's a bundle of nerves kind of back up here past the middle turbinate in our sinus cavity. And there's just a hub. There's just a collection of blood vessels and nerves in there that go up to the brain. And so they do that, neurologists and stuff will do that a lot with chronic migraine headaches. Mm-hmm. So they'll administer a catheter in the back of the sinus cavity. They'll put like an anesthetic, like a lidocaine or something, back there, let it drip onto the nerve bundle, and boom, pretty much a migraine can be stopped immediately.
Got it.
So I kind of adapted that and started looking into, and lo and behold, talk about research, there's some cool research on administering cells intranasally and watching and tagging them and seeing how much they go into the brain. And sure enough, they cross up there into the brain very well. And we can't forget about the main mechanism of them is them making that medicine and further secreting it. So, so yeah, reading it on a research paper is nice, but what we really want to know is the application, of it. How does that turn out? So, anything neurocognitive I've used that for. We have Parkinson's patients. We have dementia. We have just cognitive run-of-the-mill cognitive decline. Even if you don't get a diagnosis, maybe it's not technically dementia, maybe it's not technically Alzheimer's, but the memory's going, the train of thought's going.
That must be a huge market with cognitive decline, whether it's dementia or Alzheimer's or other. I imagine you're pretty busy with treating cognitive decline. Would you say that's accurate? Hey guys, I want to take a quick second to tell you about Blossom Wellness, a mental health hygiene company that gives people the tools they need to better manage feelings of stress, anxiety, and mental burnout. Their signature product, Bliss Blend, is formulated with lion's mane, reishi mushroom, and full spectrum CBD oil to aid in reducing feelings of stress and anxiety, boosting immunity, and supporting brain health. This is my personal favorite CBD product as it provides a nice blend of calmness along with focus and mental clarity throughout the day. To try Blossom, go to blossomwellness.co and use the code DANVOSS, that's DANVOSS at checkout.
Yeah, we've gotten some great results. One of our patients comes back pretty soon. I think it's his third time back from California. He's one of our videos on our website. You can go to the testimonial section, and you can see his talk on him in type 2 diabetes. And more so, as his wife would say, is like, they don't even feel like he has dementia anymore. Wow. At least the symptoms of him constantly forgetting things, constantly having to ask his wife something 5-6 times a day, or within an hour, not even a day. Stuff like that is gone. His type 2 diabetes, I think he needs, if he can get one more measurement of being under 120 for his fasting blood glucose, and if his A1C is still the same, he technically won't be a type 2 diabetic anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just like I asked you about autoimmune disease and joint function, what's happening there with cognitive function and improving that? What happens when somebody receives the stem cell therapy treatment? How does that result in them, with improved cognitive function?
Like the mechanism?
Yeah.
I think it goes back to all those nice little medicines that the cells are making. So part of those growth factors that they make are a lot of growth factors specific for neuronal growth. GDNF, glial-derived nerve growth factor, BDNF, brain-derived nerve growth factor. So they can make cartilage, and that's why they're just kind of jack of all trades. They can put them in somebody's knee, and their lack of cartilage or degenerated cartilage causing them pain gets better. MRI will show you after a while, if you administer it right and enough cells, more cartilage growth. You put it in, maybe intranasally, or for somebody with dementia problems, and all of a sudden their memory is improving, their clarity is improving, just their day-to-day cognitive boundaries are improving. Now that one I haven't done a lot of brain, like somebody has an MRI and it shows their brain's wilting, and then I do a stem cell treatments and their brain is growing back. But it's the objective results, or probably more so the subjective results of people saying, I could barely think straight. I couldn't hardly ever remember anything throughout the day, and now I can. And hearing that from their children and their spouses and their family members and caregivers. So we know probably a lot of those growth factors are playing a key role, turning off that inflammatory process, which is probably a big component to it, and making sure you can administer as much to the brain as possible. So with us, if we're for cognitive and brain health, we do an IV of a lot of different nutrients, probably like 15 different nutrients, in really good, significant high doses. Things like vitamin C, alpha lipoic acid, magnesium, and a dozen more. and we administer mannitol, which is going to help substances get past. We have this kind of like mesh network around our brain called the blood-brain barrier, and mannitol makes that more permeable, and so we believe that's another reason why we get the success we see with the brain health is focusing on intranasally. So it's a very least invasive, good way to deliver to the brain, and then creating it so that the cells and their secretome, the stuff that they make, can get through to the brain as well as we can too. And there's all the other stuff, like I said, like we don't really stop there because we don't use people as like a lab rat. Like I'm not just using you as to see if this cell is good, if this amount of cells are going to do it. We're a clinic, we're a private clinic. You're coming to see us for results, so we're doing everything we can. So with those cells, we administer herbal formulas, Chinese medicine formulas, diet. We do nutrigenomic testing to focus on a very personalized and precision approach to that patient and how we're going to get the best benefits for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I imagine that area of improving cognitive function through stem cells is a growing field. We were talking about research and understanding. I would imagine that's got a lot of room for growth with that research and understanding. I also understand a big part of your practice is acupuncture. Can you tell us a little bit more about what acupuncture is, how you're using it with your clients, and what are some of the main uses for acupuncture?
Yeah, so I when I was done with med school, moved to Phoenix and was waiting to get my license. There was a little hiccup because in the state of Arizona, under my license as a doctor, is acupuncture is covered. So I have to take a board exam that shows that I'm competent and know what I'm doing in acupuncture. So I went to acupuncture school, and I was just gonna do what I could so I could sit for that board exam. And after being in acupuncture school and my history with Chinese philosophy and just kind of gravitating and being entranced by that, I just felt, I fell in love with it. And I was like, well, you know what? Why not have another tool under my belt? I'm right here. I'm learning it. And so I just stuck with it. And I got another master's degree in Chinese medicine as well. So I was fortunate because as a doctor, I could practice on my patients as I was going through school. So I got to do a lot of Chinese medicine very early, a couple years ahead, instead of graduating and then getting to practice,
That's cool.
Yeah, so with Chinese medicine, with acupuncture, and the history of acupuncture is really interesting. We could almost do another whole show just on that.
Yeah. I would like to hear some of the history, if you could maybe touch on briefly on the history of acupuncture.
Yeah, so it goes back thousands of years, and we tend to think of it as very Chinese, right? Like we know if you think acupuncture, you got to think like it comes from Asia, comes from Chinese, and some of the stuff I've read is very interesting when they go back and they look through a lot of the ancient Chinese texts on when was this first being applied. Now, it wasn't obviously being applied as we're doing it now. You didn't have people laying down on a nice comfy massage table with a sterile needle the size of somebody's hair and putting it in, So what was being done so long ago? And a lot of the texts kind of see a synthesis, a merge of medicine's practice in Africa and in Europe and Asia. And there's this kind of blend that seems to have come and developed into what we know as acupuncture today. The Chinese method, the Chinese system, kind of, I think they did a really good job. Ancient Chinese doctors did a really good job of making it theirs, of honing and refining it, which is why it's been around there for so long. But it's a combination of herbal practices, acupuncture, or so stimulating a certain point on the body for some sort of a purpose, and that purpose was to restore the flow of chi and blood. And then, so to understand that, you have to really know what chi is. QI, or sometimes you'll see it pronounced spelled CHI. And it's a universal force. And that's something a lot of people in the West have a hard time conceptualizing. And it's kind of like what is that? You can't measure it, so what is it? They didn't know blood was in the body. They didn't call it blood, or they didn't know what a nervous system was. I think the ancient Greek called them phlegms. So if you say, well, it doesn't make sense, there's no such thing as chi because you can't measure it, then you're really no different from somebody from like 1500 that says, well, there's no such thing as a nerve because I don't see this nerve that you're talking about. There's strings running through the body that you're saying are moving these muscles. So you have to understand that chi is a physical property. It's a universal energy that flows through our bodies in various channels. Much aligned to like the prana system in yoga, the chakra system. So there's different words all around the world that are kind of saying the same thing. You have this energetic force, life force that flows through us, and if it gets blocked or stuck in a certain area, stagnated in an area, if it becomes weak, pathology develops. You have a problem. And so it's trying to find out what's blocking it, what's causing the issue, and restoring that normal flow.
Got it. Yeah, it's definitely a concept that's very difficult to kind of grasp, especially in Western culture. If you talk about something like energy healing, if you've never really heard about it or read about it or had a conversation about it, you hear it for the first time, you're like, what the heck? That sounds like real woo-woo. But if you start learning and having those conversations, you realize that there's something there. And the more I get into it and the more I learn about it, it's like, yeah, there is definitely an energetic field that we don't necessarily see, but there are elements that are there, absolutely. And acupuncture is just another method to kind of tap into that.
You can take it a step further too, and it's so if you can conceptualize that flow going through the body, and you're sticking needles in to maybe let's say like open a floodgate. Maybe you're opening a pathway, and okay, I can see, I can kind of visualize energies flowing through that area better. You can take it a step further, and the more experience of a practitioner you go to will tell you that it's not just the needle going in, which can, they've even done research on people that don't believe that acupuncture is working, and just putting the needle in shows benefit. That's why dry needling works in the physical therapy world. But to get the next stage, the next evolution of healing, is the practitioner actually sends his chi into your body.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. And
so that's another area where you have to train specifically for that, and it's very, very draining. It's super draining once you start learning to channel and send your energy into somebody to accomplish a goal. Boy, talk about being wiped. Yeah.
Wow. In terms of you've mentioned herbal medicine a few times now. What other forms of either Eastern medicine practices or herbal medicine, what other things are you incorporating into your practice for your clients?
I do try to kind of gauge with the patient. I don't hold them down and force them, unfortunately, to take what I want them to have. So you got to kind of, you got to have a communication and a balance with them. Some of them are just like, I don't want Chinese medicine. The herbs taste nasty. I don't believe in it. I don't want to take it. And so I'll use some more Western herbs if I need to. So Besides, the hands-on, a hands-on energetic healing, maybe a Western or Eastern herbal approach, nutraceuticals, supplements, stuff that are really common in America today. Really, it's trying to get down to a very narrow laser-guided approach instead of a shotgun approach is what I've liked. I'm not a big supplement fan. I know that tends to be a label for a lot of people in the natural, that geared towards more of the natural world. I'm a fan of pharmaceuticals. I know that I tend to get some eye openings for that because all of them have their place, and you just have to know how and when to use them. And that's what's going to create, in my opinion, the best kind of medicine going forward for us as a civilization.
That makes sense. I mean, I think if anyone that's listening that is a fan of supplements, their philosophy would be that, we are not getting the same nutrients that we once did in our soil and our food. Yep. And the word supplement, the actual word is meant to, it's meant to supplement our nutrition, right? So if we can get it into our diet and our nutrition first, then that's great. But if not, then we need something to supplement with. But from
that's where a lot of the nutrigenomic testing comes in. I talked about earlier that, I don't know if you ever looked into that or are familiar with it.
I haven't. I'm not.
Look into that because I know you're going to love it. So nutrigenomic testing is where you're looking at a person's genome. You're looking at certain genes that's obviously very specific and tailored to them, and measuring what those genes say, of course, across a vast population. That's the likelihood of them having a strength or a weakness towards certain things. Like maybe you have an allele, maybe you have a SNP or the genes to not process magnesium very well. So instead of just shooting from the hip and just taking a handful of supplements, hoping you'll get better, you can fine tune that and be like, no, you need these, and these. You should really focus on this, and probably even in this form, for you, right? Not just for anybody. So that's another way where we focus on somebody's health, running stuff like Nutrigenomics, NutriEval from Genova is another one. There's SpectraCell. There's all kinds of different labs where you can run and say, wow, you're actually very, very deficient in these micronutrients.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll definitely be looking into that because I'm a big fan of the individualized approach. There's nothing more that frustrates me than when people try to paint, a picture in a broad paintbrush where it's like, this is for everybody, when it's an individualized approach, right? Like what you need might and likely is different than what I need in terms of nutrients, and something that I might be deficient in, you might be okay in. So it's a really interesting approach. It's something I'll definitely be looking into.
Yeah.
Very cool. In terms of other wellness practices, I know we had a chance to chat a bit before we hit record here today, and you were mentioning that you're into some of the other things that I'm into with breath work and being in nature, and I've in the last year or so gotten into cold therapy, sauna use. What are some other general wellness practices that either you like to incorporate into your lifestyle or you're recommending to your patients?
Yeah, living in Phoenix, Arizona, I like to tell myself that heat therapy works really good for me because that's all I get. I don't get to practice a lot of cold therapy here. I turn the shower cold every now and then when I'm getting out.
Nice.
But it's like David Sinclair said, it's really putting yourself in the extreme of both ways that turns on those sirtuin pathways. So whether it's cold or extreme hot, boy, I tell you, the extreme hot is hard, but I imagine the extreme cold is too. So I practice more extreme hot than I do extreme cold. Breath work. I've been a long time practitioner of different varieties of Qigong and Neigong. So Chi, as we just went back to, is that life force, that we have, that energy coursing through us. Gong kind of means like to work, to cultivate. So Qigong and Neigong are different practices. Some consider them the same, but they're practices basically to work and cultivate your internal energy system.
Okay.
And man,
That's
I
cool.
tell you what, have I seen some pretty amazing things with some very strict and experienced practitioners. I've seen a guy there's a place called VibraVision in Ogden, Utah. The school is called MP USA, just letter M and P and USA, and they have a program there called VibraVision, and there's a student there. They've had lots of students. You can watch them on YouTube over the years, but there's a guy there. I'll just speak to the one I've seen, where if I took a deck of cards and I mixed them up, I threw them up in the air and I mixed them up as best as I could and gave it to him. And if I put Band-Aids over his eyes and I put a blindfold on him, he can put them in order.
Whoa.
If I can hold, I've held the card up across the room from him, and this is him doing like other things, and then he turns to me and he'll tell you the name of the card. I can give him, you can give him different bean bags of different colors. He'll tell you what color they are.
What's this
so
guy's
all
name?
this, his name is. Oh, I don't know if he wants me to tell. He's a very, very
Oh, that's
private
okay.
person.
That's fine.
It says it on his YouTube. His name's Dave.
Okay.
So if you watch the
But
YouTube channel,
the channel you gave us, it was MP USA, you said?
MP USA, yeah, or you probably get more accurate if you did VibraVision, VIBRA Vision.
Got it. Yeah.
And what you can watch some of those are amazing.
I'm definitely
Yeah,
looking
so
that
I've seen some really cool stuff with energy work over the years.
That's cool.
As humble as I am, I've gotten to do some very cool healings, energetic healing as well. So I've practiced a couple different forms of that. And really it just boils down to any other skill. If you want to get good at hitting a baseball, then practice hitting a baseball and learning the right mechanics and hitting a baseball. If you want to get good on developing and feeling your chi, your energy in your body, and do the things that it takes to practice and do it. It's clean it's as simple as that as I can tell you.
Yeah. That's it's such simple advice, but it's so useful. I mean, if I look at something like meditation,
Yep.
I started meditating, let's see, what are we in right now? 2021. I think I started meditating around 2013. So I'm coming up on 7-8 years. And I remember that very first session that I tried meditating, and it was just like for a minute or two. And I remember sitting there with my legs crossed, and it was dark room. I closed my eyes, and I was trying to do all the things that were, I was told of, just like sit in silence.
Yep.
Kind of, focus on nothing really. And if thoughts come in, just try to, you can embrace them, but then let them pass through.
Yep.
And after like 30 to 60 seconds, I just had to I stopped. I just opened my eyes and I was like, whoa, I can't do this. This is crazy. I have all these thoughts that are running through my head.
Yeah.
And it's just too much all at once. That was the first session. It was just a weird experience. And then I gave it a shot again the next day, and then the next day. And then after a couple of weeks, I think I stayed with it for like 3 weeks straight every single day.
Nice.
And after that, like second or third week, I was like, wow, I can sit here for 10 minutes or even up. I think I got up to 20 minutes of, and sit in silence. And yes, I had thoughts that came into my head, but I learned to let them be there and pass through me, and then go back into focusing on the mantra or nothing at all.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, like the more you do it, whether it's breath work or hitting a baseball or, tapping into your chi, like if you practice it consistently, you'll get better at it. It's just basic. It's a basic practice. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah. That's something I'm very, very strict with my patients. If I can get them to practice meditation, is to start slow. Start low and slow.
Exactly.
A lot of times, don't even give yourself a timer, Because in the West, it's very hard to just throw that onto somebody. It's just be still and not think of anything. And then the first thing a lot of people tend to think is defeat. I can't do this. I'm a failure. This is a failure. I can't sit down for 5 minutes and I can't completely clear my mind. So they don't do it. And so it's very important to navigate that correctly because it's such a wealth of benefit for us. I mean us collectively. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at things like meditation and breath work specifically as superpowers. And before I practiced either of them, I don't know what I did. I can't believe I lived 20 plus years of my life without it. And now I can't not have it. I have to do it every day. And I feel stronger, healthier, happier, more present, and so many other things by practicing things like meditation and breath work. I recently got into yoga now that I'm trying to establish a morning routine. I've been incorporating yoga and that's been awesome. So there's a lot there that if you give it a chance, I think a lot of people think of it and they're like you said, they're like, I can't do this. They try it the first time. They're like, I just can't do it.
Oh, I hear it so often. Stress
don't give up. You got to try it.
Stress is such a huge pathogen. It really is. It is for us in the West, in America. So you don't have to train to be a Jedi Knight. You don't need to do 2 hours of meditation and yoga and stuff like that. If you can really learn how a good 5-minute session, the benefits it can bring you in your 24-hour day of not just being able to stop and just take a break for 5 minutes, and what 5 minutes of just breathing, reflective breathing, conscientious breathing can do. It can really, really do wonders. I know it sounds silly. It's just one of those simple things people overlook.
Yeah, it really is. I was just having a conversation this morning with somebody about breathing, and what's beautiful about breathing is that we do it subconsciously. Like, we don't have to remind ourselves all day long to breathe. So that's a great thing, right? If we had to do that, that would be so exhausting. Right. If like every second you have to like tell your brain like, okay, take a breath. Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing that we're able to just do it without really thinking about it. But I think it's also a little bit dangerous in ways because we will go throughout our whole day and we'll work all day. We'll go from meeting to meeting. We'll drive and, run errands and pick up the kids and this and that and live the rat race of life. And then you get home and you go to bed and you kind of do it all over again. Very few people are actually aware of their breath throughout the day. And if you can learn to do that, if you can learn to pause every once in a while, and it doesn't matter where you're at, that's the beauty of it. It can be when you're driving, when you're sitting in a meeting, even podcast recordings. If somebody's talking for a few minutes, I might just stand here and as I'm listening, I'll just remind myself, like, slow your breathing down a little bit. Just
breathe from your belly. Breathe deep. Open that belly. Breathe. Yeah.
It's amazing stuff. It really is. Awesome. Well, Dr. Travis, this has been such a great conversation. Before I get to my last question for you, where can people learn more about you and Innate?
Our site, very thorough, very well done. InnateHealthcare.org. INNATE healthcare.org. Our YouTube channel has a lot of great content, constantly putting up more. We're going to be putting up a lot more here pretty soon. Call our number 602-603-3118. We get a lot of people calling, just wanting to schedule a quick little consultation, talk time with me about certain questions. So I try to accommodate those as much as I can. But yeah, there's all the good old-fashioned normal means of reaching out for us. You can find us.
Awesome. And you have patients all over the U.S. now, right?
I do, yeah. We have a really cool map. We have the patients pinned wherever they come from. Nice. I would say I know, 100%. Vast majority of my patients are from out of state. I still see, I have a lot of local patients and stuff like that, but we have so many people coming to us from out of state. And even
That's cool.
even over
That's-
the, we have India, we've had
Wow.
Barbados, we've had somebody from France. Like we've had people come from different parts of the world, China.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really cool. That's the beauty of today's world, as wild and crazy as it can be at certain times in certain ways. The technology that we have, it really opens up so many opportunities. That's really cool.
Yeah, like our family, a group we just had from California, a whole family came to see us, and yeah, that was the mom's word exactly. Like I had a hard time finding somebody where I live, and heard and read such good things about Dr. Whitney and the clinic there. We drive 5 hours, and we'd rather come here.
Nice.
So,
That's
yeah,
great.
very
That's
very
great to hear.
blessed. I'm very blessed for my patients and everybody that comes and sees me and allows me to heal them and help them.
That's awesome. The last question I'd like to wrap up with is your definition of health. So I'd like to hear, what does health mean to you?
My philosophy towards what does health mean has always governed around optimizing your physical, mental, and spiritual health. Each of those is its own facet of health, and sometimes you got to spend a little more on one versus the other. But having a person find what their purpose is, how they can be in tune with themselves as much as they possibly can, and listen to if you want to, God talking to you, your higher source, your higher consciousness, and following that is really going to make a huge benefit on your health. That broad definition of health. But when you fine tune those three on a physical, and a mental, emotional, and a spiritual level, I think that is optimizing your health.
Such a great way of looking at it. I think if you can get that, I almost look at it as like the spiritual piece first. And it doesn't necessarily have to be super religious, but like you said, like just a higher being or purpose. If you can nail that down and really pay attention to it and stay focused on it, then I think the physical health and the mental and emotional health pieces will follow. It's a really great way of looking at it. I appreciate that outlook.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Travis Whitney, this has been a pleasure. I appreciate your time and you joining me on the show today to share all of your knowledge, expertise, and your story.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.